Hey guys, welcome to our first flipped video lesson of the year. My name is Mr. Dahl, and I'll be doing some of these videos along with some of the other teachers on our algebra team. Today we're going to be looking at writing expressions verbally, which means with our English language and in letters and sentences, and mathematically, which means we are going to be using numbers, variables, and symbols. Well, let's dive right in. We know that communication is a really important part of anything we're going to do when it comes to learning a language, whether that's English, like this English teacher here who's a little confused, whether we're learning Spanish, donde está el baño, that's an important one, or French. Yeah, I don't know any French phrases, so hopefully if you're taking French, you know a little bit more than me. But what these all have in common is regardless of the language, you have to know the vocabulary if you want to be able to communicate. Math is no different. So let's jump right in here to a list of words and phrases that are very commonly used when we're talking mathematically. Some of these you're going to be familiar with, some you might not be. What we're going to ask you to do is to go through these and identify what each of these phrases or words is asking you to do. So if the phrase says added to, that one's probably pretty obvious, you would put an addition symbol there. If the word is times, well, what is that asking you to do mathematically? Hopefully we know that one as well. Multiplication, we would put a multiplication symbol there. Now, we want you to try the rest of these on your own. So go ahead and pause the video and give these a shot. Ready, pause. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. We can see most of these are asking us to perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. But some of these have a little bit of extra information that they bring along with them. We can see right here that the sum and difference of does mean addition or subtraction, but it also is telling us we have to put the things we're adding and subtracting in parentheses so that those operations are done first. If we move down a little bit, we can see more than, greater than, less than, subtracted from are telling us to add or subtract, but they're also telling us that we have to switch the order of the things we are adding and subtracting. And we'll see an example of that and explain that a little bit more later. Another one that can be a little bit tricky is this one down here, a fraction of. What that's saying is if you have a phrase like 1/2 of or 3/4 of, and then it keeps going, what it's telling you to do is take that fraction and multiply it by what follows it in that sentence or that phrase. Well, hopefully you're a little bit more familiar. You've refreshed your memory. And before we get into actually starting to use that language and doing some translating, let's make sure we know how to write exponents properly. Exponents are something that are simple, but if you don't know how to write them, it can be a little bit confusing for us teachers to read your writing. So let's just make sure we got this locked down. We're not going to worry about simplifying or doing anything with exponents, just how to write them correctly. We'll take care of that in some future videos. So if we have 6 raised to the power of 5, that's telling us that we have a 6 with an exponent of 5. 6 is the base, so it's going to be bigger. It's kind of on the bottom. It's a base. And our exponent is going to be written smaller up and to the right of the base there. So 6 raised to the power of 5. 11 squared. Squared means an exponent of 2. 11 is our base, exponent of 2. Y cubed. Y can be our base. Variables can be base. It doesn't have to always be numbers. And that's going to be raised to the 3rd power. And then x to the 7th. So again, a variable is our base, raised to the 7th power. So now that we've gone over some phrases and some words that we commonly use, and we make sure we know how to express exponents properly, let's dive right into translating between our kind of written verbal language, which uses our words, and our mathematical language, which uses symbols, numbers, and variables. So we've got 5 phrases here that we want you to take and turn into a mathematical phrase here. So let's look at these first two together here. 8 more than n and 7 less than the product of 4 and x. Now the tricky one in these two is the more than and the less than. Remember, this does mean addition and subtraction, but we talked about how you have to remember to flip the order. So 8, even though it comes first in the verbal phrase, is going to come second in our mathematical phrase. So 8 more than n is n plus 8. Same thing in number 2. 7 less than the product of 4 and x. 7 comes first in the verbal phrase. It's actually going to come second in the mathematical phrase, 4x minus 7. So we've done the first two together. Why don't you pause the video and give the next 3 a shot on your own. Ready? Pause. Okay, let's see how you did here. Number 3 could be a little tricky. Notice the phrase all over means you're going to take everything that came before the word over and put it on the top of the fraction and then 13 on the bottom. The difference of 4 and x squared, remember difference means you have to put the things you're subtracting in parentheses. So the 4 minus x goes inside the parentheses with the power of the exponent outside. 5 1/3 of, we're multiplying 1/3 by what follows, so 1/3 of y, and then increased or addition with 4 there. So now that we've done from a verbal phrase to a mathematical phrase, let's flip it around. Let's start with mathematical and go to verbal. So in our first example here, you could describe this as 15 times r. You could also say the product of 15 and r. You could say 15 multiplied by r. There's lots of different ways to take a mathematical phrase and express it verbally, because we have many different phrases which communicate the same mathematical process there. Let's take a look at the second one. 2 multiplied by n, then increased by 12. I could also say the product of 2 and n plus 12. I could say the sum of 2n and 12. There's lots of different ways I could express this, and they'd all be correct. So we've done the first two together. Pause the video and try the next three on your own. Ready? Pause. Let's check out the answers for these three here. How'd you do? Well, if you didn't get the same exact phrase that I did there, that's okay. And if you're unsure whether it's correct, please make sure you ask us in class tomorrow. As we're going to tell you guys with all of these videos, if you ever have questions, we're going to have time in class. Please make sure you raise your hand and ask. It's going to be really important because we're going to expect that if you don't ask questions, you understood everything on the video. Well, that brings us to, as Homer's telling us, the end. Hope you guys enjoyed the first flipped video lesson, and we'll see you next time.